Hello everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to the platform of StudyIQ IS in English. My name is Bhanwar Singh, MXND 115th course, and I welcome you on the platform. So let's see who is live right now with us. If you like, please type in the message. And today once again, we'll be doing the complete The Hindu analysis, and we'll be seeing which all important key themes are there in our today's The Hindu newspaper of 21st May 2026. That is, today is Thursday, and we'll be taking the Delhi edition and we'll be doing the complete analysis of the important articles which are there in our today's The Hindu. So type in the message and let me know that you are watching this session live along with me on the platform of StudyIQ IS. All right, now over here, these are the important themes that are there in our today's The Hindu. And the first news that we'll be discussing is about the caste census of 2027 and the recent Supreme Court ruling as well. All right, then we'll be talking about the UAPA bail as well, the Andrabi judgment. There is a complete editorial that is there. This is an editorial piece that we'll be discussing in our today's session. Then we'll be discussing about the Naxal-free Bastar as well, the post LWE or left-wing extremism governance or the reforms that the government is going to bring. As well as we'll be talking about the India and Italy special strategic partnership as well. All right, so yesterday it was all in the news about, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Meloni. And ultimately, there is the strategic, special strategic partnership that had been signed between India and Italy. And the, membership or the partnership that has upgraded. All right, good morning, Kaizen. Ramu, good morning. And Uzay, good morning. Krishna, good morning. Kaizen, good morning. All right, so these are, or then we'll be discussing about, these are the four important news. Then we'll be moving ahead to the Strait of Hormuz and the India's energy security as well. Then we'll be discussing about India's peak power demand crisis. Then we'll be discussing about the delimitation bill, the loss of the South India. There is a complete article that is there. Then we'll be talking about India and South Korea defense memorandum of understandings as well. And then the documentation of the Maharashtra wetland. So these are the important themes that we'll be covering in our today's The Hindu complete analysis. Tenu, good morning. Kaizen, good morning. All right. Now over here, moving to the codes for the day. And these are the codes for today that are there. The first one is justice delayed is justice denied. We know this, but again, but justice denied is also what results when trials become indefinite and liberty becomes collateral damage. So this is again, this is the extension of the code that you can use while you are writing the answer. And Maruti, good morning. All right, so this is the first code that you can use. And then we have the second code, that is the true test of a nation's policy lies in how it balances the aspirations of its citizens, the preservation of its ecology, and resilience of its institution against the transient tides of political convenience. So this particular code, it can be used in the governance as well. It could be used for the environment and ecology as well. And it summarizes everything in just one code itself. All right, now at the same time, we have started discussing the word of the day as well. That is there in The Hindu. So the word of the day that is there in today's The Hindu is Bofo. Now, Bofo means resoundingly successful and popular. And it goes along with the synonyms are outstanding, triumphant, and phenomenal. And you can use it. The usage that is given in our today's The Hindu is the singer made a Bofo comeback this year. All right, now coming to the first news that is there in our today's The Hindu, it is on the top page or on the first page itself. And this is that nothing is wrong in the caste count. Supreme Court have rejected the plea against the move, and ultimately over here in this news, Chief Justice of India, that is Suryakant ji, he has said the bench had dismissed this plea that was against the caste count in the census 2027. All right, good morning, Apex. Now, when it comes to the complete ruling, it has ruled that whether the caste enumeration should be the part of the census, this is purely a policy issue and policy domain, and that should be decided by the government itself. Now, when it comes to the caste census that will be conducted alongside the census 2027, this was cleared by the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs in April 2025 itself. The last comprehensive caste census was before the independence of India, and it was in 1931 that the comprehensive caste census was conducted. And until 2011 census, it was only the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. They were systematically enumerated into the census that was there, and it will be the first time after the independence of India that there will be thorough caste census that will be conducted in census 2027. Now, there are two phases of the census that will be done. The first phase has already begun, and the first phase is about the house listing operation, where the houses, amenities, as well as the assets, they will be taken, into the consideration. Then later on, there will be second phase that will be launched, and it will be the population enumeration, where the demographic along with the socio-economic, the caste, cultural data that will be collected. So this will be the census will be in two phases. It will be conducted in two different phases that will be there. All right. There is the digital enumeration that will be done. It will be through the smartphones. Also, the self-enumeration portal is also being launched, and you can also self-enumerate as well. All right. At the same time, Bihar and Karnataka surveys, they are there, and we have seen the Bihar and Karnataka survey as well that pertains to caste, data. And ultimately, these are the precedent for the state level caste data as well that are there. All right, Suraj, good morning, and Shinobi, good morning. Now, over here, it is very important because when it comes to the caste data, so caste data, it can lead to the welfare targeting as well. But at the same time, there are another concern as well, and that is that it can also lead to the electoral mobilization as well. So the political parties, they can use the caste data for the political mobilization as well. At the same time, there is also the caste data is also important for the welfare targeting of those people who are not getting the right welfare from the government. All right. At the same time, when it comes to the economic implications, so we have the specific schemes that are there for the other backward classes, for the scheduled caste, for the scheduled tribes as well. All right. So there will be proper, redirection of the schemes when it comes to the caste data that will be collected alongside the census 2027, and it may lead to the quota redesign as well, and for the targeted direct benefit transfer or these subsidies that are provided. Now, over here, it is very important that Supreme Court have said that it will stay out from the political domain or the policy domain, and this has affirmed that there is the executive primacy when it comes to the census or the caste data collection alongside with the census 2027 that will be conducted. There is also a very important thing that when it comes to the caste data, so it is or it could be used as an integration tool. But at the same time, there are the risk of even the social fragmentation as well when it comes to alongside the same thing. That is, there are the two sides of the coins, and ultimately one side is that it may lead to the integration, but at the same time, there could be the social fragmentation as well. And the communities, they may reject the numbers that will be there with the caste data. Again, there are ethical questions as well because this leads to the data privacy, and there could be misuse by the political or the corporate entities as well. So there is a proper audit mechanism that are needed while collecting the caste data alongside the census enumeration that will be conducted in India. Good morning, Ms. Verma. All right, so this is the first news, and then coming to the second news, this is again the editorial. In the editorial column, you will find the recent, there was recent debate about the UAPA as well as the bail conditions which are there, and that is what this editorial is all about. All right, when it comes to the UAPA, so recently we have seen that the Supreme Court have reaffirmed the liberty in the recently Andrabi judgment, and again this is very important when it comes to your GS paper 2, that is it relates directly to the judiciary as well as the fundamental rights which are there. Now over here, it is very important to note that the three-judge bench of the Supreme Court, it had granted the bail to Andrabi, who had been held for 5 years and 9 months without trial under the UAPA or Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Now over here, the Supreme Court have reaffirmed its previous judgment. Abhishek, good morning. All right, it has reaffirmed its previous judgment that was there in 2021 in K.A. Najib. That is that section 43D5, it had been, there is no end when there is no end of the trial that is there in sight. So ultimately the bail that could be provided. Or if a person had been incarcerated for a longer duration, so ultimately the bail that could be granted, and that was reaffirmed in this particular Andrabi case judgment. Now over here in this judgment, it has disapproved the previous two judge bench rulings. There were the rulings in Gurvinder Singh in 2024 and Gulsha Fatima 2026 as well. In Gulsha Fatima, the ruling was where the bail was denied to Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam as well in Delhi riots, larger conspiracy, and ultimately this bench, it has overruled, or it has disapproved the previous two judge bench rulings that were there. Now when it comes to the UAPA section 43D5, so over here it is where we have seen that the Supreme Court have said that bail is the rule as well as jail is the exception that is provided under Article 21. Now when it comes to the article or the section 43D5, it says that the court, it cannot grant bail if prima facie case exists on the prosecution of the material alone. Now in K. Najib, there was a principle that was laid down by the Supreme Court, and it is that there is the constitutional right to the speedy trial, and it is important and it is greater than the statutory bail bar that is provided in UAPA 43D5. In Andrabi again, there had been the prolonged incarceration without trial, and it had been laid down that this ultimately is the collateral damage to the liberty that is provided under Article 21, and that is why the bail was granted in Andrabi case. However, later on, additional Solicitor General, he have said that there is presumption of the innocence that takes the back seat, and over here he has contradicted the court, or it had been contradicted by the court as well. Now there was a judicial precedent that was taken. Article 137 of Constitution grants Supreme Court the authority to review and overturn its own judgments. Right. The review is also provided under Article 13 as well. Judicial review. When it comes to the judicial review, the basic domain is in Article 13, all right, of the Constitution. Now when it comes to the judicial precedent, we can see that there is the precedent that was laid down by 3 judges bench in K. Najib case in 2021. Where it was that it said that there is rigors meant on the long custody when it comes to the Preventive Detention Act which are there. At the same time, in Gurvinder Singh, there was 2 judges benches which narrowed the Najib case. There was Gulsha Fatima case as well, where the Najib case, it was further diluted, all right, and ultimately the bail was denied to Umar Khalid, all right. And here we have the Andrabi case in 2026 where the bench, this was a 3 judges bench, and it has restored the Najib case, and it has disapproved the previous 2 of the cases that were there in the Supreme Court. Now coming to the next important news that we have in today's The Hindu is about Naxal-free Bastar. Amit Shah lays out development blueprint of the road ahead. So there had been, we were discussing about this even in the yesterday's session. So Home Minister Amit Shah, he have declared that India is now free from Naxalism at Jagdalpur meeting on 18th of May. Now there is also, when it comes to the visit, so this is after the 31st March that Home Minister Amit Shah is visiting the region, and 31st March was actually the deadline of freeing India from the Naxalism. Here he is chairing the 26th Central Zonal Council meet as well, which is the Central Zonal or the zone. It consists of Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand as well as Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. There are nearly about 3,000 of the surrendered Naxals which are there, and here Amit Shah have said that they are to be rehabilitated with the dignity, as well as there are nearly about 200 of the police camps in Bastar. They will be changed, or they will be converted into the Veer Shaheed Gundadur Seva Dera, or the public service hubs that will be there. Good morning, Reshma. Now when it comes to the Bastar, we have seen that there were key tragedies when it comes to the loss of the CRPF personnel. The first one was the Tad Metla ambush in 2010, and it was very severe because there were 76 of the personnel of the CRPF, they were killed. At the same time, there was Jiram Valley ambush as well in 2013. Again, these were the 2 important tragedies that were struck in Bastar region. All right, now when it comes to the complete, the reason why the Bastar was there, or why, we were able to eradicate the Naxalism from Bastar. Rajesh, good morning. So it was the integrated approach that was taken by the government. It was the security that was upped, as well as there was development projects along with the ideology that were implemented simultaneously. So it was the integrated approach that was taken by the government of India, and the CAPF had been deployed in the Naxal heartland, and there were the grid policing that was done. Also, when it comes to the roads were, the roads connectivity, it was increased, and that broke the Maoist supply chain, and also there were Jan Aushadhi and banking channels that were laid into the groundwork. Also, when it comes to the ideological battle, so there were the intellectuals and the urban Naxals, they were targeted separately, and the key lesson from this complete was that even after the security, the ideological rehabilitation is quite important and essential, and also the development should be there, the proper, the implementation of the Forest Rights Act, and even the PISA, that is the Panchayati Raj extension to the Scheduled Areas Act, that has to be implemented properly, because we know that they had not been implemented into the region, and the development is again one of the major cause that was the reason behind the rise of the Naxalism. So we do not want that the Naxalism or the left-wing extremism, it should rise again. And for combating that, it is very important that the development works, they should be taken care of in the region. Now over here, it is very important that the PISA Act of the 1996 is for the tribal rights. So it has to be implemented properly through the groundwork or the administration that is there. As well as we have Article 244 that provides for the scheduled areas where this PISA Act had been applied. Also, you have to remember that Salva Judum was banned by the Supreme Court in 2011. That was, where the local tribals, they were mobilized for the fighting Naxalism. So that was banned by the Supreme Court in 2011. And again, that is also very, very important, because the question could be raised in your upcoming examination. Now, when it comes to Ministry of Home Affairs, it has to ensure that the roads, banking, gas, even the water and electricity is there in Bastar, and it should compensate the 50 years in 5 years. That is, it should focus upon the development works which are there in the region. Also, there are ethical challenges when it comes to the encounter killings, because there had been controversy under Raman Singh. Even the Human Rights Commission concerns, they remain into the region, and this is very, very important. Now, when it comes to the way forward, it is very important that there should be compassion, and even the rule of law should be maintained, and there has to be a balance between the compassion as well as the rule of law. There is also very important that in the tribal regions, the self-governance can be promoted. Ayush, good morning. And also the education and livelihood, that should be before the arms surrender. There should be proper scenario or the proper implementation of the education, and the livelihood should be provided to these people. Otherwise, they will again go back to the left-wing extremism. That is where the government should think and it should work about. All right, the next is about the India and Italy, and they had sealed the Defence Pact along with the ties which had been boosted to the Special Strategic Partnership. And yesterday, Prime Minister Modi, he gave melody even to Meloni. All right, so ultimately it was the stock prices of Parle, it had upped by like nearly about 5% afterwards. So when it comes to India and Italy, they have upped and boosted their ties to the Special Strategic Partnership. And over here, when it comes to the Defence Industrial Roadmap that had been signed between Prime Minister Modi and Meloni as well. Over here, when it comes to the complete roadmap, the major focus is about Make in India. There is also the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed on the Critical Minerals Corporation. There's agreement on the agriculture and the agriculture research that was signed as well. And also when it comes to the Guardia di Finanza in Italy, that will lead to, or it is just equivalent to the Enforcement Directorate that we have in India. So there was a cooperation MOU that was signed between both of them. So we have ED or Enforcement Directorate, and in Italy there is Guardia di Finanza. So there was a cooperation MOU that was signed between both of them. There are the trilateral projects in Africa as well for the digital infrastructure, for the AI and for the clean energy as well. which was signed between both the countries, and there had been joint call for the freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. Even Modi have been conferred with the FAO, or the Food and Agriculture Organization's Agricola Medal 2026 in Rome itself. So these are the developments that have happened yesterday. Now coming to the strategic significance, when it comes to Italy, Italy is member of the G7 and India is a member of G20. So ultimately this is a significant opportunity for India, as well as when it comes to the EU. So Italy is the third largest economy of European Union as well. And there is the free trade agreement that was signed between India and EU. Although there are certain hurdles, and ultimately Italy, it can help India overcoming those hurdles when it comes to the free trade agreement between India and EU. There is also India and EU FTA that had been signed, and Meloni's support had been acknowledged by Modi, that it was because of the Meloni that India could sign this very important memorandum of understanding. There is also very important, it is the Mete plan. It is basically Africa's strategy of Italy. All right. And ultimately over here, India has, offered the partnership, and ultimately India's development partnership and Mete plan that will lead to the trilateral strategy where India and Italy, along with the Africa, they could work together for the development of African region. Also, when it comes to India, so India have reiterated the dialogue and diplomacy on the Ukraine as well as on West Africa, on the West Asia. And there are more than 800 Italian companies which are right now, they are in India. All right, they have been, they are doing business in India, and the bilateral tie is nearly about $2 billion. So there is a growth potential between India and Italy as well. Now, it is very important when it comes to the Melody Toffee gift. So it is the soft power that you can see, and also the cultural diplomacy between India and Italy that you can see between both the nation. All right. Now, over here, it is very important for your upcoming prelims. You must remember that the headquarters of FAO, or the Food and Agriculture Organization, it is there in Rome. And Agricola Medal is it's given for the food security contribution. Also, when it comes to Guardia di Finanza, this is the equivalent of the financial law enforcement, and ultimately it is just like we have ED, or Enforcement Directorate in India. And also, Italy is the member of G7 nation, and India is the member of G20. So ultimately, both are important for the Indo-Pacific cooperation, and again, that is very, very important. Now, you can write the answer for the mains, that is, how does India's multi-alignment strategy enable bilateral gains with Western European democracies? Examine India-Italy strategic or special strategic partnership. Also, if it is not mentioned, examine India's India-Italy strategic special strategic partnership. You can write this in perspective of recent Nordic visit. All right, there was Nordic visit. There is also Netherlands. All right, and there are the other Western countries with which India is moving ahead. Like for example, Germany. With Germany, we have the strategic partnership that is there, and alongside with this, you can include Italy as well. And that is the whole perspective, and then you can write the complete answer. All right, coming to the next important news that we have, it is about the West Asian crisis that is right now there. There are the 26 of the ships which had been allowed through the Strait of Hormuz by Iran. This is in the news. Along with this, there is another news that is by the foreign minister of Norway, and it is being said that Norway has been clear that the US-Israel invasion in Iran is not in line with the law. Alongside this, we can see that there are another news as well which pertains to the energy sector for India, and this is that the Australian LNG supplies to India will surge, and it had been said by Green. Also, there is another news about the Russian share in the crude oil that had been increased by 41% for the BPCL or Bharat Petroleum. So all these news, they are basically about the implication of the West Asian crisis that we are seeing right now, or the Iran-US war that was there. So there had been ceasefire on the 8th of April. The Iran guards, they are now warning of the regional spread of the war that was there. All right, Iran had allowed only 26 ships, including the oil tankers, through the Strait of Hormuz in the last 24 hours. At the same time, India's cooking gas, all right, when it comes to the cooking gas, it transmits or it transits through the Hormuz, and we are importing LPG from the Qatar and the Kuwait. So ultimately, because of the Strait of Hormuz disruption, the LPG was disrupted. The supply was also disrupted for the LPG as well. Also, when it comes to the rupee, it is still falling, and it had fell to 96.86 rupee per dollar. And ultimately, this is because of the increase in the price of the crude oil as well as the US Treasury yield that have increased. All right, there is also another news that we have just discussed, that is the BPCL, the crude share of the Russian oil. It has increased from to up to like 41% from 31%, and the Australia have offered the LNG through the Indian Ocean route, and ultimately this will be a crisis-free maritime corridor that will be between India and Australia for the LNG supply. Now over here, it is very important that when it comes to the natural gas sector, it has contracted to 20 consecutive months before the brief 2026 March recovery that was there. The Norway foreign minister have said that India is severely affected by the Hormuz crisis or the closure, and we are importing the cooking gas from Qatar and Kuwait as well. At the same time, it is very important to note that when it comes to Norway, Norway is a major supplier of oil and gas, and ultimately when it comes to India's diversification, Norway is one of the choice as well. There is US Secretary of State as well, Rubio. He will be visiting India from 23 to 26 of May, and that is where the energy security will be at the top of the agenda while discussing the bilateral ties that will be there. Now, there are various energy diversification options that are there along or in front of India. There is Australian LNG through the Indian Ocean, and ultimately there is no choke point, and this will be a crisis-free route as well. There is also Norwegia. So Norwegian LNG and the Energy Transition Partnership had already been signed between India and Norway. And there is Russian crude oil as well. It is through the non-sanctioned entities. And when it comes to the domestic diversification, so India is diversifying into the renewable energy resources, and even we have seen that at Kalpakka, the PFBR or the pressurized prototype fast breeder reactor, it had come to the critical point. As well as when it comes to the target, so we have a target of the renewable energy of 500 gigawatt by 2030. And again, when it comes to the diversification, it is very important because this complete West Asian crisis, it has shown that India must diversify its complete needs which are there when it comes to the import of the oil and the natural gas. Now, coming to the next important news is about the surge of the power. All right, and it is about how states are managing the surging of the power. So, when it comes to the peak power demand, it has increased, or it has been recorded at 256.1 gigawatt. This was all-time peak demand on 25th of April 2026. There is 37% rise in the peak demand in the 5 years, and nearly about 33% peak demand is met by the renewable energy that is there. Also, there are 13 lakh distribution transformers which are failing annually in India. These are the key statistics which are present in the article. Now, there are certain key challenges when it comes to the peak demand. All right, and it is that we have the known solar hours deficit, and there are nearly about 2% of the shortage even on the peak days when it comes to the known solar hours deficit. There are discoms which are relying on the power exchanges at the time of the peak, and the price spikes. It is equal to nearly about 10 rupees per kilowatt hour ceiling as well. There are also distribution network lags. There is generation grew by 76%, but at the same time, the transmission lines, they grew by 47%. But when we are, increasing the generational power or the generational, capacity by 46%, the transmission lines also grew by 47%. But at the same time, the distribution had not been proportional when it comes to the energy grid. When it comes to the states had been financially stressed. Like for example, UP and Bihar, they neither buy costly short-term power nor they are investing into the upgrades. When it comes to a distribution transformer, the failure rate is quite high. Alright, there had been 2% of the distribution transformer failure in Kerala. But at the same time, when you come to the North India, the distribution transformer, they are failing at quite higher rates. That is, they are nearly about 20% in the North Indian states. So these are the challenges when it comes to meeting the peak demand of the power and the electricity in India. Now, what are the solutions which had been projected? The solution is that there should be better or battery energy storage system, or BESS. All right. Now, these battery energy storage systems, they should be installed along with the solar plants which are there. Because when it comes to the solar plants or the solar power plants, so they generate the energy during the daytime, but again, they cannot, sustain the energy at the night time. So there should be battery energy storage system for the solar plants, as well as there should be pumped hydro storage for the evening peaks as well, where there could be the hydropower that could be generated at the peak hours. Alright, there should be also time of the day or TOD tariffs and smart metering to flatten the demand curve. That is alongside or as it is being implemented in New Delhi as well. There should be agriculture load scheduling to reduce the paddy sowing summer peak, and also there should be strengthening of the transmission network and upgradation of the distribution infrastructure as well. Now, it is very important to note over here that the peak demand is not the total demand. Alright, these are both different. The peak demand is different, total demand is different, and the system, it must be designed for the peak load that is there and not for the total load. And again, this is very, very important to understand. Now, coming to the next important news, it is about 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill that was brought, and over here this is a kind of interview that had been published in our today's The Hindu about the 131st Amendment Act, and ultimately this is by the Tamil Nadu, this complete is, the complete article is by the minister that is there in the TDP or Telugu Desam Party who had been recently appointed, and he says that when it comes to 131st Amendment Bill, its lapse, it is about the defeat of the delimitation that will be the loss of or loss to the South India. Now, over here, the core issue that had been mentioned in this article or that we know is about the delimitation bill that was brought into the parliament and it failed. So ultimately this failed because the South Indian states, they have opposed the delimitation bill. There is Article 81 that provides that the Lok Sabha seats should be in proportion to the population that is there in the country. Alright, also when it comes to the southern states, so after 1971 population, the seats had been frozen because the southern states, they were, or they achieved the, they were very, you can say, that they implemented the family planning very well, and ultimately they achieved the TFR or the the TFR or the fertility rate that was at the edge of controlling the population. So ultimately the southern states, because of them, the seats were frozen after the 1971 population, and ultimately this had been historically fair. But the next census, it will use the new figures that will be there. And after the bill's defeat, the delimitation, it will now be based on census 2027 and not 2011. So over here in this article, it has been said that the states that are there, the southern states, because of the new census and the new delimitation that will be conducted after 2027, they may lose the seats. The Tamil Nadu and Kerala, they will lose nearly about 7 seats, as well as Andhra Pradesh, it will lose 3 seats, and Telangana nearly about 1 seat. So there will be the seats that these states, they will lose. So over here, he have said that the Home Minister had assured the floor amendment if needed, but the politics that drove the debate and ultimately this Delimitation Act, it had been, it was defeated into the in the parliament. Now, this complete is about the federalism challenge, because when it comes to the political aspect, you can see that there is north and south divide. So ultimately the northern states, the population rate or the population growth, it remained high. Alright, the southern states, they stabilized their population growth. And ultimately this will, the complete delimitation that will be conducted after the census, it will reward for the effective population control is loss of the political power. Alright, that is, when it comes to the effective population control, that is what the southern states they did. But ultimately, because of the effective population control, they will lose their political power that will be there. Alright, when it comes to Article 81, it is all about the representation that is there, and 84th Amendment Act, it has frozen the seats till 2026. And now, after the 2026, the froze or the freeze, it will be lifted, and again, Delimitation Commission or delimitation exercise, they will again, there will be a proper representation that will be done according to the population that will be there. When it comes to TFR, so the southern TFR is nearly about 1.5 to 1.8, where the northern TFR is 2.5 to 3.0. So again, the population growth is more in the northern states that is there. Over here, he has said that the Andhra's incentive for more than 3 children should be there, and TFR is at 1.5 and it is below the 2.1 replacement level when it comes to Andhra Pradesh. And there is SIR linkage as well, that is that where we are talking about the clean voter rolls. But if the population shifts, so ultimately the delimitation impact, it will be amplified. And again, what we have seen because of the SIR and because of this delimitation, the southern states, they will suffer more, and that is what is there in this complete article that is there. Now, the next important article is about the recent visit of Mr. Rajnath, who is Defense Minister, to South Korea, and there are various deals which had been signed between both the nations. So, there are key defense agreements which had been signed, and when it comes to the agreements, there is a MOU on Defense Cyber Security Cooperation, another MOU on training exchange where NDC, that is National Defense College India, and also the Korea National Defense University, the MOU had been signed between both of them. As well as there is MOU on UN peacekeeping operations. There is 2 Make in India MOUs, that is for the self-propelled air defense system and directed energy weapon systems as well. Directed energy weapon system are just like the laser weapons which are there. And there had been affirmation of the free, open, inclusive, rule-based Indo-Pacific also, and that is the convergence of Act East policy as well as Korea's the strategy as well. Alright, so that had been done in the South Korea between between the Rajnath Singh and his counterpart. New Andhra Pradesh incentive 3K, 30K for third children and 40K for fourth kid. Yeah. Alright, now over here it is very important that when it comes to South Korea is important for India and for the complete geopolitical issue when it comes to the Indo-Pacific. Alright, it is, we have already inducted, if it comes to India, we have already inducted the K9 Vajra howitzer that had been built by Larsen and Turbo, and this has proven that there is the co-production capacity between India and South Korea. There is also advanced shipbuilding, submarine technology and directed energy expertise of South Korea that India can implement, and there could be better weapons that India can make with the technology that South Korea has right now. Also, Korea is a top investor in India's electronics, whether it is Samsung or LG or Hyundai, and that makes the ties between India and South Korea much better. There is also CEPA or Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement that was signed between India and South Korea in 2010. And right now the bilateral trade between both the nation is of the tune of $28 billion and the potential is much higher. Now again, when it comes to South Korea, it is important for India to balance the power of China in the region, because both of them, both India and South Korea, they share the concern over the Taiwan Strait as well as North Korea, and that is why South Korea is important for Indian perspective. Now there is the directed energy weapons over which there is the MOU that had been signed, and these are basically laser or the microwave based weapons. Like for example, Israel has the Iron Beam. It is where there is just 2 to 3.50 dollar per shot as compared to the missile that is there. The missiles, they are quite expensive, alright, as compared to these directed energy weapons which are there. So it is very important because after the Operation Sindoor, we know that there are drone threats which are there, and we have also seen when it comes to the West Asia. So the West Asia, the Iran, the major weapon that Iran had was the drones, because ultimately they reflect the asymmetric warfare, and that is why it is very important that India should invest into the directed energy weapons as well. All right, at the same time, when it comes to the Act East, so we have moved towards the Act East policy. Earlier, it was the Look East policy, which was a softer version. All right, now when it comes to the Act East policy, we are focusing upon the trade with the ASEAN nation. All right, at the same time, there are strategic defense-led partnership with the Eastern, East Asian partners which are there, and also it covers the complete of Pacific, Indo-Pacific, not just the ASEAN nation. And again, South Korea is a key node when it comes to Act East policy of India. Now you can write the question for or answer for your mains examination. India's defense partnership in the Indo-Pacific reflect a multi-alignment strategy, critically examined with focus on India-South Korea ties. All right, coming to the next important question, news that we have in our today's The Hindu. It will be the fourth one. All right. Now over here, this is about Maharashtra completes documentation of over 23,000 wetlands paves way to bring them under legal protection. This is about the environment. Now over here, when it comes to the environment, there is another news as well. And this is that there is no new hydel projects that can come up in the Upper Ganga. That is what government has told in the Supreme Court. Now both of these, they connect to the environmental dimension. The first news is that when it comes to the SCM, it has completed the documentation as well as ground truthing of 23,415 wetlands. The highest wetlands are in Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar and then in the Nagpur division. There is the wetland rules, that is wetland conservation and management rules that were notified in 2017. Now basically ground truthing is where there is physical verification of the existence, the boundaries and the ecological conditions as well. And there are certain unnotified wetlands as well. So ultimately what will happen after this complete survey? All right, how many men in Constitution Bench? In Constitution Bench, the Constitutional Bench is, where we have 7 or more. No, yeah. All right, we have 5 bench. There are 5 judges. That is the minimum strength of the Constitution Bench, and it can move from 5 to 7 to then 9 to 11 to 13. 5 or more is Constitutional Bench. Yes. All right. So over here, when it comes to the unnotified wetlands, so basically it is important that this complete survey that had been done, it is important that so that there could be reclamation, the debris dumping, and even the encroachment that could be stopped at these particular sites. All right. Over here, there had been Supreme Court direction as well as Vanashakti NGO intervention that drove the complete process of this in Maharashtra. Now, NCSM, it functions under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and the climate change as well. Now, when it comes to the another news, so the another news is about that there would be no new hydel projects in the Upper Ganga, and this was said in the Supreme Court by 3 ministries combinedly. There was a combined affidavit that was filed by the Ministry of Environment, Jal Shakti and Power. All right, and there are only 7 existing projects which had been allowed, and the total generational capacity in the Upper Ganga is of 2,150 megawatt. So there is Tihri power plant along with the 6 others which are located in the upper tracts of the Ganga river. Now this rationale that was given by the ministries was that this complete region is seismic fragile, as well as there are bumper to bumper dams which are there, and ultimately we had seen already in 2013 that there was the Kedarnath floods that happened, in which there were more than 5,000 which were killed. All right, in 2013 there was a issue, or you can see that there was the floods that happened in the Kedarnath region, and ultimately that led to loss of lives and even for the property as well. There was Ravi Chopra expert committee that was formed later on, and it said that out of the 24 projects which are there, 23 are harmful in the region. Now, when it comes to the Power Ministry, there is, or it was for the 8 projects in the November 2024, and now it agrees to the ban, and it agrees that there should be no new power projects that should be constructed in the complete region. So ultimately, when it comes to this, alright, when it comes to this, so there had been a complete shift in the Power Ministry's stance as well. Now, there is Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone as well, which had been declared. So there could be no project within the eco-sensitive zone that is there. Alright, so this is again, these two news, they pertain to the environment domain. Now, coming to the questions, we have the first question for today. It is that consider the following statements regarding the decennial census of India. The first one is the systematic enumeration of caste is being incorporated as a core component of the first phase known as house listing operation. Second, decennial census operations are conducted under the authority of Census Act 1948, which falls exclusively under the Union list of the 7th schedule. Then the Supreme Court of India had clarified that the decision to include caste enumeration in the decennial census is a policy decision within the exclusive domain of the executive. Yes, the largest constitutional bench was Keshwanand Bharti case. Alright, so first one is incorrect because when it comes to the caste enumeration, so caste enumeration will be done in the second phase, not in the first phase. It will be done in the second phase, but the rest are true, that is 2 and 3, and the answer is B, that is the right answer. Coming to the next question that we have, it is with reference to bail jurisprudence under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act or UAPA 1967 and the recent judicial pronouncements. Consider the following statements. The first one is Section 43D5 of the UAPA mandates the denial of bail if the court, upon reviewing the prosecution's initial report, finds that the allegations appear prima facie true. Second, in Syed Iftikhar Andrabi versus NIA, the Supreme Court held that statutory bail restrictions under Section 43D5 cannot override the constitutional guarantees of personal liberty under Article 21 when trial face prolonged delays. Third, the Supreme Court ruled that a 2-judge bench can depart from the binding principles of a larger 3-judge bench such as K. Najib 2021 precedent if local security conditions require it. Right, the third statement is incorrect. Supreme Court said that the 2-judge bench, they cannot depart from the larger bench verdicts, and the first and second are true. So answer will be A, that is 1 and 2 only. That is right. Alright. Coming to the third one, we have consider the following statements regarding the Wetlands Conservation and Management Rules 2017. Under these rules, the state governments are mandated to set up a state wetlands authority headed by the state's environment minister. The 2017 rules completely exclude rivers, channels, paddy fields and human-made water bodies used for drinking water or aquaculture from the formal definition of a protected wetland. The rules established the Central Wetland Regulatory Authority or CWRA as the primary regulatory body to monitor all regional wetland reclamation projects. So what will be the right answer? Right, third one is incorrect, but the rest are true. The CWRA was dissolved. It was dissolved and not established. Alright, it was dissolved after the 2017 rules. So we have 1 and 2 only, that is A is the right answer. Now coming to the next one, this is assertion and reasoning. Southern states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala stand on loose seats in the Lok Sabha in the upcoming delimitation exercise based on the next census. Article 81 of the Constitution mandates that the ratio between the number of Lok Sabha seats allotted to each state and the population of the state must, as far as practicable, be same for all the states. So what will be the right answer? No. Why R is incorrect? It is true. Alright, Article 81 is also, Article 81, it says that the ratio of the number of the Lok Sabha seat, it should be, proportional for all the states which are there. And that is why the southern states, they are bound to lose the seats, because ultimately they have less population, they have controlled their population growth. So over here it will be A and not C, because R or the reason is the answer or the reason of A as well. Alright, next, with reference to Italy's Mattei plan for Africa, consider the following statements. The plan is designed to transition European relations with Africa away from traditional donor-recipient aid towards an investment-led partnership-based model. Second, the geographical scope of the plan is strictly limited to North African countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea. Under the India-Italy Special Strategic Partnership, both nations have agreed to execute joint trilateral development projects for Africa or in Africa. Right. As far as practicable. That's true. And it is, yes, the right answer is B again, because when it comes to the geographical scope, it is not limited. Alright, it is not limited to North of African countries. So again, second statement is incorrect, but yes, first and third are correct, and that is why answer will be 1 and 3 only. Alright, so that would be all in today's session. I have already given you the mains questions in between, and again you can find the PDF on my Telegram channel, that is at the rate BHANWAR_StudyIQ. Alright, that is where you can find the complete PDF. And even if you are preparing for UPSC for 2027 or 2028, then you can join the GS Foundation course. There is also one of the major announcement that I have to make. That is that we are coming up with the smart revolution. Alright, there will be a smart revolution, and we will be announcing what this smart revolution is all about. This is very important for your preparation for UPSC examination. So along with the smart revolution, there will be the changes that you will see on the platform of the StudyIQ, and this is very important for your complete and comprehensive preparation for the your examination, for your UPSC exam. And you can join the foundation course resolution in English for 2027 or for 2028 as well. And you can use the code that is BRS Live for joining this, and you can join the public administration batch as well for 2027 and 2028 as well. Alright, thank you Krishna, and Reshma, thank you, and Kaizen, thank you very much. Thank you Ramu, and yes, we'll see you soon. Thank you very much that you have enjoyed the session, and Shinobi, thank you. Miss Mama, thank you. Alright, so that would be all in today's session. Thank you very much guys for joining me over here on the platform of StudyIQ. I will see you tomorrow at the same time, that is at 9:30, and we'll be doing the complete analysis once again of the news articles that will be there in tomorrow's paper. Thank you, bye-bye, take care, and Jai Hind.